And someone who makes me giggle a ton is Mr. Jason Segel, Manor Muppet himself, in specifically the movie Forgetting Sarah Marshall, which we literally just watched.
We did.
Because also in this year, I want to watch more of my best friend's favorite movies. And out this year is him not watching my favorite movies. So
that's right.
We're gonna try to be more conscious about that. So for me, I love me some love, but I also love some relatability. And Forgetting Sarah Marshall is all about. It's a movie about a breakup and how to recover from a breakup, and it shows all sides of it. And honestly, did you just fart? No, it was a yawn.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have been able to hear that anyway. So Forgetting Sarah Marshall, it's a funny movie. It's a romantic movie. It's got the rom, it's got the com. It's got a shit ton of actors that we know. It's pretty stacked as far as like comedians go. You got Jason Segel, you got Mila Kunis. Oh my God, what's her name? Dax Shepard, and Kristen Bell plays Sarah Marshall. You got the guy Russell Brand. I almost called him Russell Peters. And then you have cameos from people like Jack Breyer, who played fucking Fix-It Felix in Wreck-It Ralph. You got Jonah Hill, fresh off the success of Superbad. You got Bill Hader, Paul Rudd. It's just a shit ton of people that we know. Yeah, it's a movie that I hold very near and dear to my heart. The first time I saw it, I was really going through an emotional experience about a girl. And this movie...
Take advantage while you hang me out to dry. But I can't... Sorry, you said about a girl, so...
I really did.
I had to bust out the song.
I did say that. Also, the fact that Peter, played by Jason Segel in this movie, is a musician... When I first saw this movie, I was like, was there a documentary crew following me around and making a movie? And my life is nothing like this movie, but I made up a bunch of connections in my head. So anyway, I've held this movie in high regard in my brain for a very long time, and this is the first time that I've seen it in a while, and I'm thinking about it super critically. But yeah, before I dive into that, David, I want to know what you thought seeing it for the first time. What did you think?
I don't think I've seen Jason Segel in another movie besides I Love You Man, which, have you seen that?
I have. Yeah.
Yeah, where him and Paul Rudd are
that's also pretty. It's also a pretty good rom-com.
That's a bro rom-com.
Yeah, right, it really is.
But yeah, he's really good. I thought there's definitely some funny parts. You know, the pediatric fire truck sticks out.
Yeah, that's a good part.
Yeah, just a bunch of good lines because it's like the one team making all these movies like this, Superbad, Knocked Up, goddamn
40-Year-Old Virgin.
Yeah, just like
the Judd Apatow crew.
Yeah, these guys are just like firing on all cylinders, and I don't know what they've done recently.
Not a whole. I feel like all of the actors that were in those. Well, first of all, it started way back when there was a show called Freaks and Geeks where Judd Apatow cast a bunch of these actors, and then they sort of had a not a round table. What am I thinking of? Like a brain trust of actors and writers, and Judd Apatow was kind of at the center of it. So they just started making a shit ton of movies after Freaks and Geeks got canceled, and it's popularized. They call it stoner comedy of the mid to late 2000s. There's a lot of mentions of, even in this movie, Paul Rudd's character mentions weed a couple of times, and it's like very apparent that in the mid 2000s it was still not even a taboo thing to talk about, but it was like edgy, you know? It was like, yeah, we're going to have our people in this movie talk about weed because it's funny, you know? Now it's like you mentioned weed, and it doesn't have nearly as much impact as it did when we were in middle school.
Yeah, I mean, it's just a few lines, though. It's not like
it's not
Pineapple Express.
Yeah,
Polar Express. Yeah,
that would have been a very different movie if CGI Tom Hanks. It's just, instead of a train, it was like a dispensary, you know? And they weren't going to the North Pole. They were just going to somewhere in LA. But Yeah, no, it's very. I forget how heavy it is on the rom part of the rom-com in the second half. The first half of the movie is a lot, I feel like, lighter and funnier than the second half. But I do really like this idea that, you know, you go into the rom-com being kind of on Peter's side, the main character, because he's the one that gets broken up with, and then you find out that he was cheated on by Sarah Marshall, who's this big TV star, and he does the music for her show. And over the course of the movie, the perspective almost flips a little bit, where instead of him having flashbacks and thinking about her and trying to forget her and going to Hawaii, they end up meeting in Hawaii, and then she is sleeping with a different guy, and then he meets Mila Kunis, who's the receptionist at the hotel where he's staying, and they hit it off. And as their relationship starts to get stronger, bless you, Sarah and her, you know, fuck buddy's relationship starts to grow weaker, and she starts having flashbacks to their relationship, and she starts wanting him back. So it's kind of I didn't notice until watching now that it really is just like it's like a what do they call it? A symmetrical, or like, it's like a, what's that thing where a word is the same backwards and forwards?
Parallelogram?
That's a shape. Well, whatever it is.
It's
a palindrome. Yeah. I only remember that.
Not gonna get that.
I only remember that because I had this idea in high school when I made it onto SNL. I would have Tina Fey play Sarah Palin, where she did a bit called Palindromes, where she just sat in a chair as Sarah Palin and she would read palindromes from a book. And that's why I remember palindromes.
Wow.
Anyway, this movie feels like an emotional palindrome where you start out in a really sad, you know, happy place before the breakup, and then it gets really sad, and then, you know, the perspective shifts, and then by the end, Peter is happy again, and he's naked again. Did I mention that? You see Jason Segel's dick? Like, in the unrated theatrical version, you see his dick like 3 times. It's too many times.
That's just that was a very good, like, cinematography moment, because you see him like nude, obviously, but, like, you know, camera pans, you know, just above that region. So, because like every movie does, and then it just like cuts to just the full shot. It's just really good. It's really well done.
Also, another fun fact: there's an animated movie that came out called Storks in like 2013, which was flew, pun intended, under the radar for a lot of people, but it starred Andy Samberg as a stork. It was directed and written by this guy, who showed Jason Segel's cock and had Fix-It Felix. This is before Wreck-It Ralph, so he couldn't have known. But there's, you know, Fix-It Felix talking about having sex and using the word fuck a lot. So anyway, yeah, it feels a little long at points. I don't know if that's just because I've already seen the movie before and I knew where it was going to go. Did it feel long to you? Did it feel like it kind of dragged on, or do you feel like it was just, you know, telling the story for the sake of, you know?
I don't know. I didn't get like bored or anything.
Well, that's good. That's a good. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a fun time. Like, rewatchability, I don't know how much it has, but
right. So yeah, when it comes to rom-coms, for me it was between that or Crazy Stupid Love, and I ultimately chose this movie because I was telling David earlier, it has more personal significance to my life. And like I said, when I first watched it for the very first time, it resonated with me a lot, and it just kind of stuck with me. And it made me appreciate the Muppets movie, the 2011 Muppets movie, a lot more, because in this movie, not only does Jason Segel work with puppets for his Dracula musical, go watch the movie, but he also drunkenly sings the Muppets theme song at one point, so it should have been obvious that he was going to do a Muppets movie in the future. Anyway, I love that man. He's very tall and awkward and funny, and Mila Kunis is, I mean, she's great, and she has really great chemistry with Jason Segel, but she's also really hot. and Kristen Bell is also really hot, and like everyone in this movie is hot, and it's just, what are you doing? What are you doing listening to us? Go watch it. Go watch it and form your own opinion.
Yeah, all it needed was Ryan Reynolds. It would have been the sexiest movie ever.
Sexiest movie alive. So that's all I gotta say about my favorite rom-com.